Talk on failures. Do you have any new failures to add to that of you or your colleagues?
Yes. You know, there's a phrase. I know that a lot of people in this room have used this. The honey-do list. Right? It's this, the honey-do, for anyone who doesn't know it, it's like the list that your wife wants you to take care of in the house before you take care of your own stuff. Oh, not only your wife, it's true. But it's the separation between church and state. It's the separation between the things you have to do and the things you want to do is generally the flavor of this. So I did an interview with Ken Plume last week where I was talking about how I don't like that phrase, my wife is my partner in every sense of the word, business, personal, emotional, creative. And you know, I've worked very hard to not separate the idea from the things I want to do from the things I have to do. I mean, early on in our marriage, we went on a vacation to Hawaii. We got back, we had like 2 weeks off. We were in Hawaii for 10 days. We got back, and I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to go to the shop. And my wife goes, what the hell? It's like, you feel like we just spent 10 days in Hawaii, so now you can go to the shop. And I said, no, yeah, that's exactly what I did. Well, what's wrong with that? And what's wrong with that is that the idea that there's going to be the thing you have to do versus the thing you want to do. I want to do all of that stuff. I love him. My wife is the person I tolerate most in the world. I can't, given how many people piss me off, I can't believe I want to hang out with her for most of every single day. So I had done this interview with Ken. And I'd done this interview with Ken all about this partnership, and you know, I felt quite articulate about the importance to me and you know how great my wife is and all of that. And then I went home and the next morning we had this big fight because I was being a dick. And what I was being a dick about is the pressures that I'm under. I mean, anybody who has a full-time job with kids is under the same kind of pressures I'm under. It's all a grueling slug of trying to maintain every detail. And then when you think you've got it all, your kid goes to school and punches someone in the face or something, and you've got to deal with one more friggin' thing. And you're just like, you're at your wit's end. You're at the end of your rope. And I was basically walking around feeling like, I'm taking care of everything. Please don't give me one more frickin' thing to take care of. And my wife had to point out that it was making me, her, and my kids feel like minions tiptoeing after me. And she was totally right. I was totally screwing up the game like that. And the best part about this is, I've done this so many times. Look, I mean, life is nothing but going over the same problems you have, just over and over and over. You just get better at dealing with it. And the thing that I realized is the same thing I realized when my kids were 6 months old. You know, when your kids are 6 months old, you're just like, there's no one can possibly understand how difficult that is unless you've gone through it. And there's a point at which you have to like the heat, like rain that you can't get out of. You just have to give over to it. You just have to fall in love with it or you'll die. And for me, it's realizing, yeah, I am taking care of everything. And I can take one more thing, because that's what this job takes. This job is being a father, being a husband, and being a Mythbuster, and being a, you know, celebrity. And all of the things that that entails. And it doesn't require getting rid of some of those things. It just requires a slight shift in consciousness. So to me, every time I require a shift in consciousness, it's because I've failed in some aspect. But I also recognize that, as my old friend Ram Dass said at one point, only total despair precedes a change in consciousness. And it's true. It's a lovely thought. So I always remember when I feel most despairing that I'm just about to change my mind. I didn't mean to get all heavy on you guys. But that's just the truth. These questions, just a second, these questions are awesome, by the way. This is really the best roster of questions I've ever gotten to answer. I hope yours is good.
Has there been where you're in the course of telling the story you thought you were going to tell, and all of a sudden an entirely different story falls out of the sky and into your lap? And if so, how do you keep a whole production nimble enough to be able to deal with something like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. It happens to us all the time. We try and the way we keep it nimble enough is we pay attention. And The crew is actually quite small. The production team that Jamie and I operate with is about 12 people total. And most of the time we're filming, it's me, Jamie, camera, sound, and our director Alice. We have 3 researchers, associate producers, who get our locations, get our materials, gather our experts, gather our personnel, and set up the shoots. And then, we're out there. But we have the schedule, and it changes every single day. I'll give you a terrific example. We're about to tackle the Valkyrie bombing, the bombing, the Plaza Assassination. We've had this debate about whether or not to put a mustache on the dummy. I can tell the vote here is yes. I hear you. It still may not happen. But we're doing research into the Valkyrie bombing, and it's a classic example of you start to delve into material, and the question is, which room in the Wolf's Lair bunker in Poland were they supposed to have had the underground meeting in? It matters. The myth is that they had the meeting above ground, when the windows opened and the bomb went off and it only killed 4 guys. Well, the windows opened and then the blast could propagate outside and didn't reflect back inside, and thus people survived. And if it had had an underground bunker, everyone would have died. Because the blast pressure is contained, and people would have sustained much more force, and they would have all been killed. So that's the question. That's where you start with. But then the question is, which room was it supposed to happen in? Is it a big room? Is it a small room? How big is it compared to the room upstairs? We know the size of the room that the bombing actually happened in. We've got pictures of that room. We've got a map of that room. We know where everyone was standing. But the room in the Wolf's Lair bunker, I actually got really good at searching weird crap in German last week, trying to figure it out. Like doing translation, what's German for blueprint? At some point, one of our researchers on the project screwed up. He says to me, it looks to me like the bunker room was actually quite large. And I say, how large? He says, like 200 feet long by 60 feet high by 40 feet wide. And I'm like, holy cramoly, really? That's going to screw everything up. Because I want to do this first experiment in scale. I want to build a steel box the size of the room above ground, and I'd like to build a steel box the size of the room underground and seal it in. But if you're telling me the room is that large and the walls are 26 feet thick, really? I might have to cast this whole thing out of concrete. So then we start calling up the landfill where we might blow it up. We're talking about how many, 25 cubic yards of concrete. So we're doing all this research. And this all of a sudden the story becomes a totally different story. Because it might be that in the sealed room that's much larger, the blast pressure is the same as in the open room that's much smaller. And all of a sudden you've got all this other comparison. It means that there may be a different internal experiment between the two. So we actually have on our board now 3 completely different episodes roughed out. I can't even think anymore by typing or writing it down. I have to work on a whiteboard. It's actually now the full extension of my brain. So, we're basically there trying to plot out this episode at the same time as the researcher is trying to lock us down 3 different locations depending on what we're going to do. And that's how we stay nimble enough. We're lucky that we have fantastic relationships with some amazing locations in San Francisco. Military bases, we've got the Alameda County Sheriff's Bombing Range with J.D. Nelson out there. We've got the San Francisco Altamont landfill where they pretty much let us do whatever the hell we want. We've got Ione, California, where we did the Dive to Survive. We did underwater car there. We blew up some stuff for Green Hornet up there. It's like private property. It's like, whatever! And so, the way we stay nimble enough is we're paying attention to all the plot lines, and we're ready to lock down different locations for all of that. And we've built a lot of really good relationships over the years. It's actually one of my favorite things about doing this show is that we're able to turn on a dime and change a whole episode based on the result of one small-scale experiment down in the shop. It happens every other week that we do that. Yes?